Here's House's 1-2 pitch to Pruitt. Ground ball to second base. Doug Griffin should handle this, and it's over. The 10-game losing streak is over, and the Red Sox come out en masse to congratulate Tommy House, who wins his first game with the Red Sox.
Pitching Absolutes by Major League pitching instructor Tom House. This videotape is divided into 3 major segments. Number 1, the composite picture, getting the most out of your talents. Number 2, throwing mechanics. And number 3, the pitching absolutes. We trust you'll find this videotape informative and practical. It's for pitchers of all ages, from small fries to big guys.
Hi, this is Mark Holtz, the voice of the Texas Rangers, and we welcome you to Arlington Stadium in Arlington, Texas, where the Texas Rangers call it home. Things have improved over the years here at Arlington Stadium as a very young Ranger ball club now vies for contention throughout the American League West. Pitching, they say, is 80 to 90% of baseball, and that's proven true with the Texas Rangers over the last few months and the last year. Tom House is the new pitching coach of the Texas Rangers. He's responsible for taking a very young staff and making them what they are today, a contender. Tom, they say that pitching is 80 or 90%. You might go as high as 100%.
Yeah, well, I've been a pitcher my whole life, so of course I have a bias there. But what we're trying to do here is look at pitching something bigger than just the skill itself. We're looking at the composites that make an athlete get the most out of his ability. Not all of us have major league talent, but all of us have a certain amount of ability that we can deal with. And what we're trying to do is determine what composition it takes for you to go between the lines and get the most out of your talent. And as I see it, the way the research is trickling down, there's 4 basic parts that a pitcher has to apply himself to get the most out of whatever God-given talent he has. There's physical conditioning, mental conditioning, nutritional conditioning, and the mechanics of the position. And we address each one of those things individually and as a composite so these kids can go out and be competitive.
That's what we'll be talking about today, the 4 different aspects that make up, hopefully, a major league pitcher. And as you say, sometimes you can do it without all the talent in the world when we get into mental and things like that. Is this a new approach? The Texas Rangers, a club that had struggled for many years. A new young manager in Bobby Valentine, he hires you. A man who is getting his psychological degree, you might say. A man who is a thinker, an organization that needed a turnaround, a new approach. You've given them that in the pitching part.
That's pretty close to being true. You know, baseball is a great game. The game has been around for 100+ years because the basics are very sound. What baseball hasn't done is taken new information from what other sports are doing, bringing that into and making it work in the baseball environment. We, here in Texas aren't trying to rebuild the wheel. We're just trying to grease it up a little bit with this new information.
And success always leads to a principle. You've got those principles. Basically, Tom, there's been outstanding success from folks who are 20, 21, and 22 years old who have now won in the major leagues with your philosophy.
And that's pretty much proven to be so at this point in time. Again, it's the support of front office, the support of the coaching staff, and good talent with the kids.
Tom House has 4 basic pieces to the puzzle that will make you, hopefully, a major league pitcher. The first one, and perhaps one of the real important aspects, is physical conditioning. Tom, there have been so many good young athletes with good arms that have not been in physical condition and have failed at the major league level. How would you rate physical conditioning and the importance of the 4?
It's extremely important. Kids can get by on natural ability without, conditioning themselves properly, but you want a career. You don't just want a good year, you want a career. And what we have found is that physical conditioning is a function of strength and stamina. And strength, there's absolutely no way of getting around. You have to build strength by pumping iron. As you look at a young athlete coming up and developing his skills, you have to create a foundation with physical conditioning that'll allow him to be consistent with those talents that he has. We use some basic rules of thumb with physical conditioning that what you have to do is you have to work opposite muscle groups through a full range of motion. You lift maximum weight a minimum amount of repetitions. If you have something left in your weight program after 10 repetitions, you haven't lifted enough weight with that particular exercise. There's an important difference between building strength and maintaining strength. And building strength is an off-season activity. Building strength requires that you push yourself to muscle failure. And if you reach muscle failure with your weight training program, it takes about 48 to 72 hours for your body to bounce back to 100%. In an in-season program, you lift on a regular basis, but you don't push yourself to muscle failure. You build in the off-season and you maintain during the season. Again, opposite muscle groups. If you work your bicep, you work your tricep. If you work your pecs, you work your lats. Opposite muscle groups through a full range of motion, so you're building strength and flexibility. And then during the season, with maintenance work, you do the same type of weight training, except you don't push yourself to muscle failure. Same weight, fewer reps, or less weight with more reps will give you that maintenance instead of building.
Now we're talking about the whole body, not just the arm or your upper portion. We're talking about complete, full body physical conditioning.
That's exactly right. What people have neglected in the past, they've just zeroed in on pitchers' arms, their shoulders and their arms. And we have found that it's a global influence. Your whole body interacts with each other. And if you're gonna approach only your arm, something's gonna blow in your low back. If you overdevelop in your abdominal region, something's going to give up in your shoulders. So you treat the whole body as this unit that you take out there to perform with, and you have to treat it that way accordingly.
Now, when do you start? If you're a kid, do you go out and pump iron for 5 straight days? Is there an age bracket and a limit that you have set as to when you should progress?
Yes, the only way you can build strength is to move weight. Now, with a youngster, we use a shaving rule. If you haven't started shaving, don't pump iron, okay? What you do work against is your own body weight. Push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, sit-ups, dips. When a youngster at age 9, 10, 11 years old runs out of gas with doing push-ups, he's done. And what we found is that youngsters can lift weights, but their muscle tissue will build stronger than the ligaments and tendons that hold them in the joint. And in effect, when they throw a baseball, their muscle will rip itself right out of the joint. So again, use the shaving rule. If a kid hasn't started shaving, it's not time for him to pump iron. But if he, wants to work on his weight training, wants to get stronger, push-ups, pull-ups, chin-ups, sit-ups, and dips, working against his own body weight to tolerance, will build him some strength and help him develop his physical strength while he's performing.
So in other words, you don't want a Charlie Atlas. You don't want somebody to do more than he should be doing. You want him to build to his body strength, not a set, prescribed Charlie Atlas type figure.
Exactly. The concept for today is called useful body weight. You don't want to build bulk at the expense of flexibility. You don't want to sacrifice strength and have flexibility. It's a combination effort. And again, if you'll keep in mind that your goal is you build in the off season by pushing yourself to muscle failure, all right? A 3-day-a-week lift, okay? And during the season, you maintain. The only difference between building and maintaining is in a maintenance program, you don't push yourself to muscle failure. That will take care of the strength side of things. The stamina side of physical conditioning, stamina by definition is cardiovascular and respiratory efficiency. How efficient are my heart and my lungs at getting blood and nutrients to my muscle tissue? Now down the line when we talk about nutritional conditioning, we'll bring up blood chemistry again. But for the idea of stamina, for building your heart and your lungs, if you'll put in your mind that a minimum of 3 days a week, you have to get out and get your heart rate and your breathing rate up and sustained for a minimum of 25 minutes. So you combine that, and you can do it with jogging, brisk walking, treading water, swimming, riding a bike, either a stationary or a mobile bike. Any one of those things, aerobic dancing, you can get out and get your heart rate accelerated and your breathing rate accelerated and sustained for 25 minutes, 3 days a week. You're doing your job. Now, those are minimums. If you lift Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, then do your stamina work Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Take Sunday off.
Now, you've seen it work because the Rangers have had some young pitchers a little out of shape from other organizations, and I know that you've put them on this program, and they're having great success today.
That's exactly right. And again, I haven't developed the program. I've borrowed it from what has been proven by the medical profession through surgeries and rehab, and I figured, well, if it works in rehabilitation, why not do it up front in a prehabilitation type thing and avoid injury, build yourself a foundation of strength and stamina that will carry you.
Tom, let's clarify again, building and maintaining muscles and muscle failure. What exactly is muscle failure?
Well, muscle failure, if you're free weighting it or Nautilus or mini gym, your universal gym, whatever vehicle you use, when you've reached muscle failure, you cannot get through that exercise. You're done. On that 10th repetition, our little 10 repetition
rule,
rule,
out of gas.
On that 10th rep, school's out. Your muscles say, I've got nothing left. When you've pushed yourself to that muscle failure, your body takes 48 to 72 hours to bounce back. And that's why you don't want to lift weights on a building program every day. On a maintenance program, basically all you're doing is the same weight training, working opposite muscle groups through a full range of motion, but you're not pushing yourself to muscle failure. You can lift every day if you don't push yourself to muscle failure. That's the key.
At the major league level, there are some great pitchers that go to the mound that don't wind up with their careers at the major league level because they just don't have it, as they say, up here. The mental part of baseball is so important. And Tom, for a pitcher against the big hitters in the major leagues, the guys you've got to get out, the home run hitters, the mental aspect can totally tear apart a career if it's not in the proper perspective. That's
exactly right. I think Yogi Berra said it best, that 50% of this game is 90% mental. And Yogi, in his wise ways, has hit on something that we're trying to do and are, achieving some success with it. The mental conditioning part of the game is a function of information plus experience becoming knowledge. And information is, if you look at it in the big picture, it's external information and internal to the individual information. External information is what's going on in the field, the hitter you're facing, what your defense is doing behind you, what the catcher is calling. Internal information is coming to terms with the adrenaline rush, your fears of success, your fears of failure, the kind of things that make an athlete, his mental part gets in the way of what his physical is capable of doing. When you match up that good information, looking at it for what it is, with practical experience between the lines, it becomes knowledge, okay? With knowledge comes awareness, all right? Awareness is awareness of what can go right and awareness of what can go wrong. The buzzwords in sports psychology today are positive visualization, centering, deep relaxation, seeing yourself doing it right. All it boils down to with this positive visualization is you're taking this awareness of what can go right and zeroing in on that. Your body, and this is proven psychologically, your body will aspire to your last thought, conscious or subconscious. Your body will try to do that. If you have a negative thought, consciously or subconsciously, that's what your body's going to try to do. It's the I don't want to hang this curveball syndrome, or a pitching coach or a manager going out to a pitcher and saying, don't let this guy hit your fastball. That's negative reinforcement. If this awareness is positive, if you can see yourself throwing that low and away slider and getting a double play, this is what the kid's body will try to do under game conditions.
Now, most kids that come up and play college ball or high school ball, go on to a professional career, have had some success. Otherwise, they would not be drafted. They would not be given a chance in professional baseball. Do you build off that success?
All right, now these kids have figured out, in spite of themselves, a certain route that will help them. And good, bad, or indifferent. Some people are very good at positive visualization. They just naturally do it, by themselves. Other kids with great talent are horribly in the other direction. And it's what you have to do is assess, when you're looking at this young individual, where his weaknesses lie. And there's no such thing as hiding from them. We like to identify problems. If a kid has a fear of success or a fear of failure, let's talk about it. Okay? If you identify the problem, solutions are a lot easier to come up with. Where baseball, in my opinion, has failed in the past is they have this Marine mentality. I don't want to see any weakness. Get out there and get the guy out. Don't even look at me funny. Get the guy out. Well, if you address the weaknesses in a team atmosphere, in a supportive atmosphere, identify what they are, work on them, then you've got these little bridges to get yourself across those little, scary times when you're between the lines.
In other words, when you go to the mound, you don't walk out there and say, hey, kid, Babe Ruth is dead, get the guy out. He needs a little more than that. He needs to, is this staying within oneself?
Exactly, and that's a great buzzword right there. You have to deal with what the kid does best. And your responsibility as a parent or a coach, your responsibility as an athlete is to identify what's going on in your mind while you're performing, while you're working for performance, and deal with that. in a positive way. Again, with knowledge comes awareness, all right? Awareness of what's good and awareness of what's bad. Avoid the bad, deal with the good, and your body will aspire to that particular performance.
And a final point here, you are dealing with very young major league pitchers that all of a sudden have blossomed at the major league level. It doesn't happen overnight, this mental aspect. Is this not a thing that even in your career, later on, you were still trying to conquer?
Oh yeah, and my generation of athlete had to stumble on it by ourselves. It's a teachable thing. Parents with Little League kids, high school and junior college and college players, as well as at the professional ranks, you can self-teach, or if you have a good instructor, the two of you can work together on this. The key is information, external and internal, plus experience, and this knowledge base, and identifying the good and the bad and trying to deal with the good. If you think good, you try good, more than likely your body will aspire to that.
One thing about baseball broadcasting, your diet varies from steak to steak if you're in the booth like I am. That cannot happen on the field, and it's something that has to be addressed, Tom, is the nutritional conditioning. This is so important for an athlete. We've seen some guys overweight, and they have really had some tough times. You have to be in condition. This is a real key for a pitcher.
That's exactly right, Mark. We're finding that blood chemistry, I mentioned a little bit when we were talking about our physical conditioning part of this total composite, that blood chemistry is extremely important to the efficiency of the whole body while this athlete is working out and performing competitively. And the analogy that can be drawn is if you take two Ferraris, a red Ferrari and a black Ferrari, and in this red Ferrari you put cheap oil and low octane gas, all right? And in the black Ferrari you put the best oil and the high octane that the manufacturer recommends. Now, the red Ferrari is still better than 99 out of 100 cars on the highway. But when that red Ferrari comes head-to-head with a black Ferrari and goes competitive, it's going to finish second every time. So no matter how hard an athlete works on his conditioning program, no matter how good his thought processes are about performing between the lines, if he's putting the wrong nutrients in his body, his blood chemistry is going to be affected accordingly. And what we've approached it as is that there are certain things you should do and certain things you shouldn't do to arrange your blood chemistry. Everybody is unique. There are people that have, the allergies that we talk about. There's a new concept that has to do with sensitivities. Oftentimes the foods that we eat the most and the most often, we build a sensitivity to, which isn't good. So I'm going to lay out some rules of thumb here. And if you can approach them with that in mind, that everybody's blood chemistry is unique to themselves, but within these general guidelines there should be a fit. Protein is something that everybody has to live. Protein and amino acids are the building blocks of life. Your body has to have them to rebuild, grow, and survive on a day-to-day basis. But protein, when you put it in your system, is very hard to digest. It pulls blood from your extremities, okay, makes you less efficient externally while the blood is going to the digestive tract and trying to help you metabolize this food. Therefore, you do not want to eat protein previous to a meal or a workout.
And this would mean what kind of food substance?
Okay, proteins basically are any kind of meat, any kind of dairy product, beans, fish, okay, poultry. Those type of things are necessary in the diet, but not as a pregame or pre-workout meal, okay? What you should have for your pregame or pre-workout meal is a complex carbohydrate oriented meal. And complex carbohydrates are basically pasta of any kind, noodles of any kind. The only difference between pasta and noodles is that there's egg in noodles. Baked potato is a great source for a complex carbohydrate. Any kind of whole grain cereal, rice, breads. If you can think in your mind's eye that complex carbohydrates are a time-release energy source. You get them in your stomach, they release energy on a regular, easy to metabolize rate that doesn't pull blood away from the extremities.
Tom, and going through some clubhouses, and I guess hockey also made this very prevalent, was the fact they had oranges, a lot of fruits and vegetables before workouts and before and during games. Can you talk about the fruit-vegetable situation in this chemistry makeup? Very
perceptive, Mark. And we're seeing it. The game is changing in the clubhouse as well as on the field. Fruits and vegetables are something you can eat any time of the day or night. It's got the sugar's natural sugar. There's roughage. The bottom line there is that it's an efficient energy source without detracting from, and the benefits of having the vitamin C's and the whatever involved in the fruits and vegetables are much better for you than what I saw when I came into the game, candy bars and whatever in the clubhouse. In tandem with, you know, complex carbohydrates as a pregame meal, having that stuff around the clubhouse is a good fit. Some things to avoid, okay, refined carbohydrates. These are the things that we all like. Ice creams, pies, cakes, junk food items.
The broadcasting food.
The broadcasting food, the things that, you know, we all like, but that are not good for you nutritionally. What it does is it gets your blood sugar really elevated. It's a hypoglycemia syndrome type thing where your blood sugar goes way up, burns, and then you bottom out at a level below what your competitiveness requires of you. It's that lethargy you feel, that flat feeling about the third or fourth inning. If you overload on refined carbohydrates, you're going to pay. As far as liquids and keeping liquids in your body, Gatorade and all these generic liquid replenishers are fine. But for, you know, just plain old economics and being good for you, if you take ice water with citrus fruit, you know, squeeze it in, throw the rind right in the ice water, you're doing everything you need there. Beer, and we'll talk about beer and alcohol. Beer is part of the clubhouse tradition. Beer is a diuretic, okay, which means it takes fluids away from your body. And these youngsters that come in, and again, you see it on TV, you see beer being sold in tandem with sports. Alcohol per se is not good in any form for an athlete because it relieves the body of fluids when you're supposed to be keeping them. Tobacco products. Again, tobacco were a part of the tradition of baseball. But tobacco products, because of the nicotine, are a vasoconstrictor, all right? There's also sugar in tobacco leaf and in the dip that we have, which again elevates the blood sugar. Not good for you, besides the risk of cancer of the gums and the mouth. So again, if you look at your nutritional package in the composite, you want to eat protein early in the day or late after your workout. Complex carbohydrates should be your pregame meal. Fruits and vegetables anytime you want. Keep the liquids going. Keep them in your system. Avoid alcohol, avoid tobacco products, and in that total composite, you'll arrange a blood chemistry that will help you be more efficient when you go between the lines. It'll get blood and nutrients to your muscle tissue when you have to call on that to get your performance out of your body.
And Tom, we should mention that this is not just some formula you've come up with. You've pitched in the major leagues. You've tried the different areas to see how efficient you can be. You've now tried it on some major league pitchers, and this is what you formulated.
That's exactly right. And what we do with our major league athletes is we actually get a blueprint of their blood chemistry. And this can be done, it's a cytotoxic, a blood test, and a urinalysis to figure out how they're metabolizing protein, what their HDL, their cholesterol levels are all about, and you can come up with a diet that fits. But again, for general purposes, avoid protein pre-game or pre-workout, eat it early or after. Complex carbohydrates for that, that energy release, time release, energy release. Fruits and vegetables anytime, push the fluids, stay away from alcohol, stay away from tobacco, and it goes without saying you want to stay away from drugs. You youngsters that are looking at this tape, drugs are a no-go. You see that everywhere. You avoid your drugs, not necessary. In the total composite, if you fuel your body efficiently, it's going to perform for you efficiently.
Again, what we're talking about are the four pieces of a puzzle that fit together to bring out the best talent that you possibly can have as a pitcher. And obviously, one thing that baseball has been concerned with for a long time, Tom, the mechanical, the windup, the delivery, how you stand. This, of course, is a big ingredient into being a successful pitcher. We've covered three things that are very important, but without the final step, you still can't get to the big leagues.
Again, to get that picture in focus, to get that puzzle put together, throwing mechanics are an integral part of the fit. Now, baseball for 100 years has done a great job addressing the whats of throwing mechanics. They have not done a good job of the whys. And with the technology that's available now, the high-speed video, the digitizing of the videotapes and getting on computers, we are able to come up with theoretical absolutes that are required for throwing mechanics, which lead into pitching mechanics. And this is something that, here with the Rangers, we are very video-oriented, we are very computer-oriented, and that marriage of technology has afforded us an opportunity to see the whys that go with the whats of throwing mechanics.
The baseball for the 90s.
Hopefully. And again, baseball is a great game. I keep saying that. I'm a very traditional pitching coach. I use a lot of the same things that were taught 10, 15, 25, 30 years ago. The only difference is that we're adding the whys to go with the whats.
Some of the things that we'll be watching, you're now world famous for throwing a football, right mechanics.
Exactly. You cannot throw a football wrong and make it spiral. If you do all the things that we're going to be demonstrating in a little while with your throwing mechanics, if you do them correctly, then the football will spiral. It's also a little heavier than a baseball. There's some overloading or some weight training involved. And motivationally, it's a fun thing to do. You can tell an athlete to throw a baseball for 10 minutes. He might throw it wrong for 5 of the 10. But trying to make the football spiral, going through the throwing motion with a football and somebody that's trying to do it on a consistent basis, it's a real good motivational tool.
Let's check out those mechanics.
Now, as we address throwing mechanics, which will eventually lead into pitching mechanics, I'm assuming now that we all understand what physical conditioning, mental conditioning, nutritional conditioning is all about. If you've got those things in your mind and understood and you're applying them on a regular basis, this part of the skill takes care of itself. We loosen up to warm up to do our activity for the day. Now, I'm assuming before you start throwing that you've gotten your body loose with some jogging and some stretching. The stretching is extremely important pre and post workout as part of the flexibility that goes with the skills of throwing a baseball. Let's address the skills of throwing mechanics. There are 4 things here that also apply. 4 positive things that deal with throwing a baseball. Whether you're an outfielder, whether you're an infielder, whether you're a catcher or a pitcher, the physical act of throwing has 4 things that must be addressed. First of all, your glove side is your directional side, okay? Wherever you are in a baseball field, when you go to throw a baseball, you follow your glove side. That's shoulder, elbow, glove, hip, knee, and foot are always going to be going in the area or the direction that you're throwing the ball. That's what we call our glove side, our directional side. If you think about it, an outfielder who catches a fly ball must pull the ball close to his body and square off with his front side, taking his directional side, his glove side, toward where he's throwing. An infielder catching a ground ball pulls to the middle of their body, his front side, glove, elbow, shoulder, hip, knee, and foot square off towards where he's throwing the ball. A catcher receiving the ball, coming up to throw a runner out at second base, will square his body off, glove, elbow, shoulder, hip, knee, and foot. Your glove side is your directional side. It always goes toward where you're throwing the baseball. Okay, a second ago I talked about dividing the body exactly in half. The theoretical center of gravity of your body is right down the middle of your body. Tall kids will have a high center of gravity. Short kids will have a low center of gravity. When you break your hands to throw the baseball, whether you've received a fly ball, whether you've caught a ground ball, pull your hands to the middle of your body, and as your hands break, turn your thumbs under. Now, we're going to explain this a little bit more in detail. Turn your thumbs under as your hands break. What this forces you to do is get your elbows up on both sides. We found the relationship from elbow to elbow is an extremely important part of the throwing mechanics. So when your hands break, you've caught the ground ball, you've caught the fly ball, you're pulling it to the theoretical center of your body. When you break your hands to throw the ball, turn both thumbs underneath. Underneath. What that does, biomechanically, with your thumb underneath, your elbow stays up. Watch what happens if I do it wrong. If I break my hands with my thumbs over the top, where does my elbow go? Both of them go down. Again, positive reinforcement. When your hands break, the thumbs go under. All right, that's rule number 2. Rule number 3, you want to take your thumbs under and keep your elbows as high in the arc as you can until they get shoulder height. You want to be in approximately this position, all right, when you begin your acceleration to throw the baseball. The height of your front side and back side elbow, you must think about like, say, a wheel on a car, where your head is the hub of the wheel and your elbows, your arms, are the outside, the rubber part of the wheel. And what you want to do is create a maximum efficiency in the throwing motion. Just like a wheel must spin properly on a car, so must the elbow-to-elbow throwing motion with your head as a hub be efficient as you throw a baseball. We have found that biomechanically, a grown man from this position right here with the wrist up and the palm down can hold about 60 to 65 pounds of weight without any difficulty. If he turns his palm to the sky, he's lucky to be able to handle 37 to 40 pounds. By the laws of physics, your forearm, your hand, and the baseball at acceleration weigh about 47 pounds. So it's much more efficient biomechanically to be 60 pounds strong than it is 37 to 40 pounds strong when your wrist, forearm, and baseball weigh 47 pounds. You can throw incorrectly, but eventually you're going to pay with an injury. So again, by breaking your thumbs underneath with both front side and back side elbow, you're creating a high elbow plane, okay, that when you begin the acceleration of your arm, you have a wheel from a position of strength around which you can whirl to throw the baseball efficiently. The fourth point of proper throwing mechanics is called weight transfer. And we use our head as a means to determine whether we are getting a good weight transfer. Bottom line, take your head from your back foot. As you accelerate to throw the baseball, get it out over and in front of your landing leg foot. And that's all there is to weight transfer. Weight from back foot to front foot, using your head as a key. When you finish your throwing motion, look down and see if your head is out over and in front of your landing leg. That'll tell you if you've done a job or not. That basically are the throwing mechanics that you have to understand and apply on a regular basis for positive muscle memory so that you can take throwing mechanics to the mound and become what we call a pitcher with solid pitching mechanics. And that's where we're going to go right now, to the mound. All right, now that we've addressed throwing mechanics, we can step into my quote-unquote office and talk about pitching mechanics. This is where it all happens right here for a pitcher. There are 4 absolutes that we've determined by looking at tens of thousands of feet of high-speed video, digitizing them, asking the computer what are the common denominators. And these 4 absolutes are true across the board, whether you're a flamethrower like a Nolan Ryan or whether you're a soft thrower like a Tom House. No matter what your style, these pitching absolute, 4 of them, have to be accomplished for you to get the most out of what talent you have to work with. Absolute number 1 is called balance. Absolute number 2 is called direction. Absolute number 3 is called weight transfer. And absolute number 4, a new one, is called deception. The first 3 kind of sound very similar to what we talked about in throwing mechanics, but they're a little bit different interpretation of those same words. The deception part number 4, is something we've just come up with in the last 6 to 8 months that has some real interesting implications. The first thing we have to attention ourselves to with a good balanced delivery is our foot placement. Left-handers, if they don't have a preference, should throw from the left side of the rubber. Right-handers from the right side of the rubber. This has to do with angles and deception just based on where you stand and where your arm goes as you release the baseball. It's a little more efficient if you're right-hander to right side, left-hander to left side. You should have a balanced stance, knees flexed a little bit, toes a little bit over the front of the rubber, or at least your pivot foot toes a little bit over the front of the rubber. You do not want your knees locked. If there's a runner on third base and he gives a false gig up to steal the base, you're going to bend your knee and have a balk called on you. If you're in a flexed position with your knees, a comfortable base with your feet, you'll never have that little glitch that a runner can scare you into if you are relaxed with your feet and your legs. With your hands, the back of your glove is extremely important in the delivery because it hides from the hitter and either coach what pitch you're gripping. Whenever your hands come together, all right, whether you start with the ball in the glove or whether you swing the ball into the glove, the back of the glove has to be up and toward the hitter to hide the pitch grip that you are reaching for. Okay, now we've got our foot squared away, we've got our glove, know what we're going to do. Now when we initiate the beginning of the wind-up, what you're going to do at that point that your hands get as high as they're going to go, whether you bring them over your head whether you bring them here, whether you just basically bounce them where they are, whenever they reach their highest position, you are going to pivot down in front of the rubber with your pivot foot. A key here is that your head should never leave your pivot foot. Balance is so critical, and what you have to do is make sure that your center of gravity is always lined up, cap over the ball of your pivot foot. And what this boils down to, if you're taking too big a step back, your body and your balance leave that pivot foot. Not good. What you want to do is, from our position of a flexed knee, toes over the front of the rubber, nice and relaxed, glove up and hiding the ball, take a very small step back with my head never leaving my pivot foot, so that as my weight gets on this back foot, it's a simple matter for me to step down in front of the rubber. Not half and half and not on top, but down in the hole in front of the rubber. Okay, let's do that again. My setup is good. Left-hander from the left side of the rubber, toes hanging over a little bit. Glove up and hiding the ball, okay? As I take my small step back, my head never leaves my pivot foot. Now I pivot down in front of the rubber, and I begin to lift my leg into this position right here. Now, once we've established a small step back, keeping our head over our pivot foot, we're going to lift into a balance point and not swing or kick into a balance point. The key here is if you use your quadricep to lift your leg, you're going to be much better balanced. If your hamstring figures into the equation, like a football player kicking a football, what's going to happen is your upper body has to come off of that solid balance point to compensate for your legs swinging. So again, from the position of a small step, keeping your head over your pivot foot, we're going to lift our leg using our quadricep, lift our leg to that maximum, optimum balance position. Now, with the height of the knee, very important thought process here, the height of the knee and the length of the arc of the arm are directly correlated. We have found through miles and miles of tape that if a guy has a real high knee kick, he's going to have a real long arm arc, a la Jim Palmer. If he's got a real quick leg, he's going to have a shorter arc with his arm, a la Don Gullett from the early 70s to late 70s. There is no right or wrong. It's a function of what the kid does naturally. Don't artificially tell him to get his knee higher or take his arm on a longer route. There is no such thing as a short armor, as long as he will satisfy all the biomechanical efficiencies that are necessary in this throwing motion. Again, the height of the knee and the length of the arc of the arm are directly correlated. The key here is, for proper balance, you do not start forward until your knee gets as high as it's going to go. Remember that. You do not start forward until your knee gets as high as it's going to go comfortably. Now, once we've established a good balanced position, with the height of our knee being where it's supposed to go, and we're not going to start forward until our knee gets as high as is comfortable, then we'll start adding in the directional part of our delivery, absolute number 2. With the directional part of our delivery, the first key is you will break your hands at that moment that you begin your route to home plate, following our glove side, our directional side. You will break your hands from the theoretical center of gravity, right in the middle of your body, just like hands on a clock. Thumbs under, elbows go up. Okay? Do not drive your hands away from your body or pull them away from that theoretical center of gravity in your body. It's just like hands on the clock. Your hands will thumbs under, break apart every time from the same spot. This is important for muscle memory because you want your arm to take the same route that is natural for you, but a consistent route every time, so you're not fighting to get it to that point on the backside where you can begin your acceleration to throw the baseball. So once we've achieved our best balanced position and we begin our route to home plate, we're going to break our hands by going thumbs under from the middle of our body as we take our route. Don't take them away. Don't drop them down. Don't bounce them. Keep them somewhere in the middle of your body, that theoretical center of gravity, and break them like hands on a clock from that position. If you do that, then you initiate your directional part of your pitching absolutes properly. Now, once we've achieved this, okay, there's our balance. Now, as we take our route to home plate, we break our hands, thumbs under, and we're going to take a very positive route following our glove side. I like to teach nose, elbow, knee, and target. Again, nose, elbow, knee, and target. If you line those things up, keeping the same thought process in mind about height of elbows in relation to shoulders, you're going to take a positive route from a strong balanced position and achieve the beginnings of a very solid delivery. All right, now that we've addressed a good balance and what it takes to get a positive direction, now we're going to talk about weight transfer, our third absolute in pitching mechanics. If you can use the analogy of your head is going to be the hub of a wheel, your arms are going to be the outside of that wheel around which they're going to spin using the hub on a positive direction toward home plate with the weight transfer. And again, if we'll assume our positive balance position, we break our hands with our thumbs under and we begin our route toward home plate. Now the ideal situation here is when the weight transfer goes from backside to landing leg side, that will be the time that our arm is turning over on the backside, just like with our throwing mechanics. That same timing occurs. When this front leg lands, that is the point at which the arm is turning over on the backside to initiate the throwing motion to home plate. Now, if you line up nose, elbow, knee, and target, like we just talked about, your front side direction is going to take you on the plane that you have to be. Now, on every throw, when you begin the acceleration of your arm is going to come through, ideally, with your elbow above shoulder height, because your arm snaps straight on every throw. Your arm snaps straight on every throw. If you come through with a low elbow underneath shoulder height, now when your arm snaps straight, your fingers are going to be underneath the ball. This is a pitcher that can never get the ball down. It's always up and away, always up and away. If you come through with your elbows at shoulder height and think about the hub and the wheel as you deal and throw to home plate, now you're going to come through in a position of maximum leverage with a good weight transfer when this front foot is hit, and your arm is going to snap straight in a position of strength and not a position of weakness. Again, balance, direction, okay? See where my elbows are? Now the wheel takes place around my head as a hub, high elbow, both sides. Now my arm snaps straight at this point right here, and I've got maximum leverage from foot right on out through fingertips to get my pitch where it's supposed to go. That's what a positive weight transfer is. Our fourth pitching absolute has to do with deception. For the longest time, hitters would come in and say, that guy is sneaky, I just can't quite read him. Or we as coaches would ask each other, why does a guy like Frank Tanana with an 83, 84 mile an hour fastball get people out with that fastball, when a guy like a Dave Stewart, when he was here in Texas, would have difficulties with a 91 or a 92 mile an hour fastball? And the bottom line here is deception. A hitter does not hit what you're throwing, he hits what he sees. And deception is pure and simple your ability to defer that seeing reading mechanism of the hitter by the length of your front elbow to your back elbow. And if you'll think about this, in an adult male it's about 3 feet. When you add the distance from where a guy releases the ball to home plate, it's about 54, 55 feet. 3 feet over that distance is 3 to 5%. In other words, an 83 mile an hour with deception is really an 84, 85, 86 mile an hour fastball. A 91 mile an hour fastball with no deception is only 86 or 87 miles an hour. So again, deception is a function of making the hitter hit what he sees, not what you're throwing. Okay? We want to mess that up as we can. Now here's how you teach it, and here's what to watch for. As you take your route to home plate, assuming you've got your good balance, You've broken your thumbs underneath, your elbows go high. That wheel of the weight transfer that we're talking about, as your arms accelerate to throw each other, what you want to do is either by having the glove come over or underneath, you want to make sure your front side elbow stays over this landing leg until you begin the acceleration of your arm forward. Your front side is directional only. If it leaves the direction that you're aiming toward home plate prematurely, the hitter is going to see the ball a lot sooner. If you stay on line with that elbow, no matter what your glove does, coming over or coming under, you're going to defer his ability to read the pitch. You've accomplished your goal. Bottom line, with good balance, good direction, a positive weight transfer, and keeping that front side elbow as high as the back side elbow as you begin the acceleration of your arm, you have a delivery that is sound top to bottom all the way through implementation of the pitch. You're going to be deceptive as well as consistent with your body. Not only are you going to have good years, you're going to have good careers. We're going to talk about pitch grips now and the important parts of what you need to do to make the ball break, run, sink, whatever. Bottom line here is, if you can think in your mind's eye, from elbow down, your body is the same on every pitch. Every pitch, it's the same, whether it's a curveball, a slider, a sinker, or a fastball. The only thing that changes to make the ball move is the position of your wrist and your forearm around the baseball. If you set it early in the arm arc, when your arm turns over on the backside ready to throw, it will take care of itself. To make the ball break requires what they call a supination of the arm. Your palm comes through in a karate chop-like action, palm in. To make the ball run or sink requires a pronation of the arm, which means palm goes out as you implement the throwing motion. The arm snaps straight on every pitch. The key to having proper grip and proper movement on the ball is to set that angle early, okay, as you begin your throwing motion, and letting your arm snap straight in either a supinated or a pronated position to implement rotation on the ball. Bottom line here, grip and finger pressure are icing on the cake if you set wrist and forearm early. For your thought processes, if I hold the baseball like this, a cross-seam fastball, all right? I'm imparting force right through the baseball with maximum leverage, maximum force. That's going to give me maximum velocity. Now, from that grip, and I'm demonstrating left-handed, you right-handers just think of it as being, you're looking in a mirror. If I go one step, one notch of supination, okay, that would be a slider. 2 notches is a breaking ball. See this? Fastball, slider, curveball, okay? Fastball, slider, curveball, all right? Now let's go the other way. Fastball, sinker, screwball. Supination gives you break, pronation gives you sink. If you think of that in your mind and then arrange your grip across the board with the classic curveball grip or the classic screwball or sinker grip, all that is just an extension of what your wrist and forearm are allowing you to do. Again, if you get your grip properly as you come through, right in this angle right here, as your arm snaps straight, there's your fastball. Same action for a breaking ball. I'm going to come through and I'm going to supinate a little early. Now when my arm snaps straight, see where my fingers are on the ball. Not here imparting force through the ball, but here imparting force around the ball. I'm keeping the same arm speed as I do with the fastball. I'm just not imparting as much force through the ball. To the hitter, he sees fastball arm speed, but what I'm imparting is breaking ball rotation with fastball arm speed. The hitter isn't hitting what I'm throwing, he's hitting what he sees. And there's how you get deception with pitch grip, proper mechanics with the pitching motion, and the whole piece fits together. Okay, we're going to talk about 3 types of fastball grips right now. The first is the classic cross-seam, 4-seam fastball. For left-handers, you find that C. For right-handers, it will be a backward C. I'm going to demonstrate left-handed. You take your middle finger and put it across the fat part of the ball. A lot of youngsters will get in trouble and take it across the skinny part where the seams are. And what happens is it's not as efficient because of where you end up putting your thumb. So the classic four-seam fastball is to take the fat part of the seam where it's widest and put your middle finger right across that seam. Your pointer finger is support, and what that automatically does is put your thumb on a seam underneath. No matter how large or how small your hand or fingers are, it will arrange itself if you put your middle finger across the fat part of the seam right there, pointer finger for support, your thumb will automatically fall on a seam underneath. That's the cross seam fastball grip. Now let's talk about across two seams for the fastball grip. Where these two seams come closest together right there, we're going to place our fingers across those two seams. Again, middle finger across the middle of the ball with your thumb finding a seam underneath. That's across two seams. Now we're going to go a with the seam fastball, and basically this boils down to putting where the two seams come closest together like this. You're going to put your fingers, arrange them in this position inside the seam, not outside, but right inside, with your thumb finding a comfort zone on the seam underneath. The relationship of middle finger to thumb is extremely important because that's where your leverage comes as you release the baseball. Let me go to a four-seamer again. If you take across the wide part of the seams with your middle finger, when you impart maximum force on the ball, it actually leaves your middle finger last as you throw the baseball. Okay? Works in tandem with the thumb. If I show it this way, when it leaves like this. Okay? Now with that thought process in mind, think again. Maximum force on the ball imparted with your strongest finger, your middle finger, with the thumb used as the leverage plane underneath. Popping the ball out this direction. What we're going to talk now is a traditional grip for throwing a curveball. What you want to here, again, our middle finger is the most important finger on our throwing hand. What we're going to do is take our middle finger and line it up right against that seam, right there. Okay? Your pointer finger becomes a support finger, and automatically your thumb will find a seam underneath the ball. Now, I don't care whether you go high on the seam or get down underneath here, but the key is having the seam laying on the outside part of your middle finger and your thumb underneath the seam on the bottom, because in effect what you're going to do is snap your fingers in that type of a motion with the ball in between. Okay? Now, remember what I said about wrist and forearm. The grip itself will not make the ball break. If you come through with a fully pronated or karate chop-like action on your curveball, now when your arm snaps straight, you're going to have the same arm speed as a fastball, but you're imparting rotation over the top of the ball, spinning the ball like this. A curveball is an off-speed pitch. Now we're going to talk about a slider grip, and all a slider is one notch to the left, one notch of supination with fingers and wrist and forearm to give ourselves a break with more force on the ball than we do our curveball, but less than what we're doing with our fastball. It's a power pitch breaking ball. Again, from our cross seam fastball, all you're going to do is move your middle finger one notch to the left of center, and that'll give you, with properly supinated wrist and forearm, the slider, the spin that you need to make the ball break in a power pitch. Now with a change-up grip, we want to have the same arm speed as a fastball, but we're going to impart less force on the ball, which will give us less velocity in the throwing motion. Probably the change-up that's getting the most attention today is what we call the split finger change-up. Roger Craig with the San Francisco Giants, ex of the Detroit Tigers, has had a lot of success with this pitch. All it boils down to is that you're splitting your fingers wide of where these seams come closest together, and in effect throwing the baseball from one joint down from fingertips, so that when you throw the baseball, you impart rotation and force this way instead of through the ball. Again, by dissipating the force that you're putting on the ball, by spreading your fingers, you're keeping the same arm speed as a fastball, but it's coming out of your fingertips like this. Same arm speed, less force, therefore less velocity. Another variation on the changeup is what I call a pitchfork changeup, where you'll take that same look, you're going to split ring finger and pointer finger wide of the seams and have your middle finger as a balance mechanism, a balance device, to impart the same feel as a fastball, but because you've spread the force out on the ball, you're going to impart less force, therefore less velocity as you throw the baseball. A little helpful hint here is if you squeeze a little harder with your thumb, it firms up the muscles in the back of your wrist and will kill it even more as you release the ball. Bobby Witt has probably one of the better arms in the big leagues. Here's a young fellow with a 94, 95-mile-an-hour fastball that's just now learning what his body is doing in competitive circumstances. The absolutes we talked about in this pitching video are being implemented by Bobby, as he did a lot of it naturally when he first signed, but we've refined it. He's got a little bit better idea what his body's doing in space. And if you look for the critical components, as he's going through his delivery, he's got great balance at the top of his delivery. He doesn't start forward till his knee gets as high as it's going to go. His weight transfer is outstanding. And as he takes his direction, he does a real good job staying behind that front side elbow. You add in the fact that he throws the ball 95 miles an hour, and what he's got is $1 million career ahead of himself here. Show our little drill here, Bobby. As he comes up on top, what we've been reinforcing is to get his knee here before he starts forward. Getting his knee to that position, which is natural for him, before he starts forward, catches everything up with his arm and enables him to take a good direction and get a weight transfer. So have a look at he's going through, and look for the 4 absolutes we're talking about. Balance, right there, direction, weight transfer, and extension. Look at the height of his front side elbow as he takes his route to home plate. It's outstanding. The hitter has difficulty reading what the pitch is going to be. Again, the hitter doesn't hit what you're throwing, he hits what he sees. Small step back, and I'm going to stop you right here. There's where you want to be as you bring your hands down. Okay, feel this setup right here?
Yeah.
All right, and then when you take your route, your front side comes up, and you're following this elbow and letting it happen. So as you get to here, it's here, okay? Lift and step, don't kick and swing. Lift and step, don't kick and swing. Perfect. Mitch only throws from the stretch, okay, which is typical of a lot of the relievers that are in the game today. The only difference mechanically between windup and stretch is that you cut the front half off of the windup to get to your set position. If you look, Mitch is already in his posting position, and he's going to lift from that balance position to the beginnings of his delivery. He's just cut the step back and the pivot in front of the rubber out. He's already in front of the rubber. He just lifts his leg to that balance position, does not start forward till his knee gets as high as he's going to go, breaks his hands from the theoretical center of gravity on his body like hands on a clock, and gets it right on there. Now Mitch's weight transfer is outstanding. Watch how low his head stays to the rubber, or to the mound, as he takes his route to home plate. Real low to the ground. And did you see his front side elbow deferring the seeing reading mechanism of the hitter for that theoretical 3 feet of deception? Both Bobby and Mitch work extremely hard on all 4 parts of what it takes to become a successful pitcher. They're strong with their physical conditioning program. They do a good job with the mental conditioning. They're both nutrition oriented, and they both work real hard on their mechanics, the skills of their position. So again, that composite, along with all the positive reinforcement that we add in with these kids, is enabling them to have success in the major league level probably way before their experience should dictate.
Let's review. There are 4 major areas to concentrate on to be successful in your pitching endeavors: your physical conditioning, your mental conditioning, your nutritional conditioning, and your mechanics. Each step is important for your climb to the major league.
New theories come from successful people. Tom House has been a success as a major league pitcher and now has great success as the pitching coach of the Texas Rangers. His philosophies will ring true through the 1990s. Use them well. Good luck to you at your high school, college, or professional level. This is Mark Holtz.
Here's House's 1-2 pitch to Pruitt. Ground ball to second base. Doug Griffin should handle this, and it's over. The 10-game losing streak is over, and the Red Sox come out en masse to congratulate Tommy House, who wins his first game with the Red Sox.
And, you know, as this tape progresses, let's zero in on the things. And what I'd like to do is start with physical conditioning, and we'll talk about it from here. Let's cut that off and carry. I got a little giggly.
He's taken a young staff and turned them into a staff with a brilliant future. We hope that this exhibition, which is ridiculous word here, Tom House has been a success as a major league pitcher and now is the pitching coach of the Texas Rangers, where he's put together a brilliant young squad for the future. We hope that you've enjoyed this film, which is not a film. It's, why am I saying this? Why am I saying that?
Direction and weight transfer. He was a little rushy on that one. Mitch, could I get you to move just a notch so you're not laying down in the film here? Attaboy. Now, as we address throwing mechanics, which will lead into pitching mechanics. Perfect timing. All right, thanks, Artie. Hey, I need a catcher.
Okay. Here you go.
You're going to be a catcher? No, Ricky, right? You're a pitcher.